Gapo, peace. At the park as usual. Just waiting for some people to get on. Gapo. Okay. So, hey, Rodcus. Am I saying your name right? Well, I've been getting a lot of questions about genealogy, like in my inbox or whatever. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm at the park again. Y'all know I stay outside. I'm sweaty. Hey, Alabama Creek boy. Yeah, so I like on all of my different platforms, I keep getting all these same genealogy questions. People trying to find their tribe, trying to find like the origin of their family, because a lot of people, like I've been telling y'all before, a lot of people who are from who are currently from like Mississippi and Oklahoma and Louisiana, different places, have been running into not getting far back on the records, and then later they're finding out that their family come from a different region, which is another thing for you guys to keep in mind. The place where your people are currently at right now doesn't mean that that's where they're from. Okay, so especially like if you're from Mississippi, a lot of those people are from Virginia and the Carolinas, right? So you can't assume that those people are Mississippi Choctaws or what, you know, the other tribes are in, the smaller tribes are in the area. So you got to keep that in mind, keep pushing forward. Hey, Mr. Freeze. Thank you, thank you. But yeah, y'all always see me at the end of the day or the middle of the day after I've already been walking and whatever. I'm sitting up right now. I'm sitting on top of this. I don't know if I can show y'all, but if some of y'all can see behind me. But I'm sitting on top of this the big artificial mound, trying to get some peace. Let me turn it around so y'all can see. I don't know if you can really tell on this camera, but right here you can tell that I'm on top of the. It's not. But you can. Let me turn it back to me. Yeah. So even though it's artificial mound, you still feel that energy. You still feel. I personally feel like a grounding energy when I sit up on top of here. Halito. This mound is probably a year old or 2 years old. This is an artificial mound, but this park has ancient mounds that their trees are on top of it, which I don't even think the park people here know. But this area here was a Dogue town, which are part of the Powhatan Nation. What's it? I claim? What? This ain't gang wars. I would have said I claim Chickasaw. No, I'm not Chickasaw. Families from the Powhatan Nation, like I've been saying, and Nottoway, and there's other tribes involved, but mostly of Algonquian tribes. Said your people are from the Powhatan. Yeah, so where we're at is ooh, sorry y'all, my hair is sweating, and it's mosquitoes out here. But yeah, this area was a Dogue town, and there's another tribe, Taxu, and Champawamsik were close in that area too. So yeah, so it's good, like even if you have like a little hill or something, to sit on top of it and to kind of, you know, relax and meditate and things like that, to get grounded. Also to calm yourself after doing a whole bunch of genealogy work, because that can get frustrating too, as you guys know. But please ask some of the questions. Like I told you, people are getting stuck on ancestors and getting stuck on certain areas, and then later finding out that their ancestors were from a different area. So if you guys have any questions today, I'm open. This is ancient tribal wars, because some crazy Indians. Yeah, it was, yeah, a lot of ancient tribal wars. Everybody want peaceful. Definitely not. So, do you guys have any? I'm trying to read it, but I'm looking all crazy in the camera, looking all sweaty and stuff. Yeah, but like I said, even the artificial mounds have energy to them, and have thank you, a black man. You're always supportive. I appreciate the donation. But yeah, even the artificial mounds or hills have energy to them, and have, groundingness, and you can come up and do prayers and things. Because we knew that certain shapes and certain, I guess, architecture had certain energy to it, and that's why we did it that way. It seems kind of. You said you need assistance, Mama. Just if you guys need assistance, if you just have little questions and you don't want to say it on this live or any other genealogy lives, you can just email me at thetashashi@gmail.com. That's the, like THE, like the tashashi at gmail.com. Thank you. You guys give me so many compliments. I'm all sweaty out here. I ain't trying to look good. Hey, Andre. So another common genealogy, and I'm getting bit by these mosquitoes. But another common genealogy question people get is trying to find the maiden names of ancestors, which can be pretty hard and frustrating. Some of my answers have taken me months, years to find the maiden names to it. I would suggest, thank you. You guys give me so many compliments today. I would suggest looking at the siblings of that ancestor. If you can possibly find the siblings, that way, maybe like a male, like a brother or a cousin or uncle, you'll be able to find that the uncle's sister or the uncle's, or the brother's parents do like their military files. So another important place that people skip over is fold3.com, which hold a lot of, like, what do you call those, brick wall busters. A lot of information that's helped me personally. I actually found out that my great-grandfather is not my grandfather's father through Fold 3 and through Social Security records for my grandfather. So his last records before he passed away, he was filing for Social Security. He listed his real father on there, and then I went and I found his real father's records on Fold 3. So, it costs a lot, but I have some tricks with getting that for free. So sometimes your local library will have access to that for free. If you're in the DMV area, you can go to the Library of Congress and use that for free as well. Like, it may cost you a couple of dollars in parking or in Metro, but it's cheaper than paying the $35 a month for Fold 3 to get that information. Said you're so interested in learning more about your people, Brianna. Do you guys have any questions? I'm just trying to give you little tips and things I can think off the top of my head. So it's been almost like 10 minutes. Trying to think of other stuff. Oh, somebody has a question. So you're looking, ooh, it's going so fast now. T. Crump said, I'm looking for a part of my family. They're Parsons from Southampton, Nottoway area. Have you heard of Parsons? Yes, I've heard of Parsons. For that, they have a historical society for Southampton. You can also contact Nottoway. I personally have been waiting a long time to hear back from them. Ooh, sorry, mosquitoes. But hopefully soon I'll be able to contact the lady that's in charge of their genealogy. Um, Also, you can go to the Library of Virginia if you're in Richmond area, or you can go on the website, or you can call them for help because they're willing to send you things. It's probably a small fee because they are a public library, and they don't have a lot of money. So it might be a small fee for them to send you stuff, but they have a lot of files digitized now. And you can go on there, look on their catalog on the website. Just Google Library of Virginia. Now, the Library of Virginia, anyone who has Virginia ancestors, all the county records are going to be in the Library of Virginia. You can try to go to individual counties. Some of the counties will claim all their files have been burned. Some of them only have a little bit of access, but if you want to find the vital records, you just go to the Library of Virginia and save your trip, especially if you're traveling. So you're good to know you're from Virginia Redbird. Yeah, Library of Virginia is where everything is at. Hey, Pony. Let me see what your other questions here. Would the Library of Virginia have tribes from Orange County, Culpeper? Yeah, I think I addressed you last time, or somebody else who had Culpeper ancestors in Orange County. I actually had a client who had ancestors there, and I actually went to Culpeper. They have files in the public library there. They actually have the records of free people of color. They have big books of it if you really want to go down there and look for them. And the Library of Virginia would have those files as well. Now, the tribes in Culpeper, Orange County area, they had some some of the smaller Powhatan tribes, as well as the Manahawks. I think I'm pronouncing it right, the Manahawks. And I think Monacan were there a little bit at one time. And this client had Cherokee ancestors who were from that area. That area, they had a little community for free people of color, so that could be why so many different tribes were there. And also, that area used to just be a hunting ground area. They had good hunting there, so different tribes migrated through there. I don't think there was one tribe that stayed a long time. You said your family's from Tazewell. Yeah, so the Library of Virginia, that will save you a lot of energy going to different towns. And you can also, for anybody else, you can also contact your local historical society for that town or county. What's the website for Library of Virginia? I don't know it off the top of my head, but I would just Google the Library of Virginia and it should come up. Just Google Library of Virginia website and it should come right up for you. Let's see what other questions. So I'm breaking up. Yeah, I'm on top of the mound and it's like helicopters and airplanes that hit over my head. Just curious, were all Aboriginal tribes really matriarch? Or did they have different ideology? All of them were not matriarchal or matrilineal, but most of the woodland tribes, which most of us descend from, were matrilineal. The difference between matriarchs and matrilineal tribes. So even if they were patriarchal tribes, which some in South America and Canada were, a lot of them still did go through the women's bloodline for, I guess, chief positions and things like that. Thank you, Yana. So, yeah, but the main thing is with the woodland tribes, we were matrilineal. So that meant that the power was mostly spread evenly, even though women had, just like my shirt, if you can see it. Women were sacred. This is from shoporiginally.com. So the women were still, even if they were patriarchal or just going by the women's bloodline, the women didn't have much to do with the politics, the women still were seen as very sacred and very equal to the men. So it wasn't any like women can't do this, men can't do that. But we did have roles. So some, like the warrior role, were mostly from men, but they wouldn't say a woman could not do it. If a woman was determined and she was talented and skilled to be a warrior, she could be a warrior. So it wasn't like nobody's gonna stop you, but it was certain roles were hard. Like a warrior role would be harder. If you're pregnant, you can't be out fighting battles and certain things like that. But some women chose not to have children, so or they didn't marry, different things like that. Also, our chief roles were equal as well. The women and the men ruled the same type of way. It wasn't like it's a woman in charge and they would, like we have today, people saying, oh, women are too emotional, they're too this and that. They're supposed to just have children. They can't control a country or an empire. It wasn't like that. It was whoever was fit for the job. It was balanced. And then we had the tribal council, which was, made up of mostly men. And then we had the clan mothers. And both sides decided things. And the clan mothers, the women actually had the last word, and the men executed what the last word was. So I'm mostly talking about woodland society. All right. Bravura, you say, I believe my grandmother was born in Georgia in the 1830s, moved to New Albany, then Birmingham, and I can't find information from Georgia. How would I find that? You would, ooh, sorry, y'all. See, mosquitoes. They're not biting me, they're just bugging me. But for Georgia, I have a client from Georgia. For Georgia, you have to contact the Georgia archives, which are difficult. That's the only thing about Georgia. You might have to actually take a trip to Georgia. Or you can contact the local, not genealogy, the local historical society for the county which your ancestor is from. So when you're doing genealogy, the county is one of the most important things to keep in mind when you're trying to find certain information, especially about, especially getting the records, because that's where they will be housed or listed under in the archives. So yeah, the men and women, we balanced each other out back in the day. But the women also were sacred because the women could bleed and not die. The women could bleed for a week and not die. That's what they would say. And that would, for them, that was like godlike status. Like you can bleed and not die. You can bleed for a whole week and not die. So they saw that as something kind of like magical, that just by default that the women had over the men. But that doesn't mean that they were better. It was, you had to show a certain amount of respect, and that's why the respect of women was very important within those societies that we're not seeing today, because we're taking on the ideology of the colonizers. And unfortunately for their women, that was something that they had to deal with. So Clark County, Alabama, would that be Creek or Choctaw? It could be Alabama. Alabama was a tribe as well, as some people know, and that was actually a nation. They also had smaller tribes within Alabama. So Alabama there's a lot of information on the tribes of Alabama. If you're looking it up, you can easily find that. I wouldn't assume Creek or Chickasaw are one of the bigger tribes, because there were so many small tribes. And all Creek is a government, and a lot of people were forced under these governments like Creek and Cherokee, which were actually smaller tribes. So, do you see women and men of our descent with your phenotype in Virginia? Yeah, people tell me all the time I look like somebody's cousin or something, just because we had the same phenotype. And I've also just randomly found cousins just based off of how I look. Like if I go back to where my family's from, like I went this one time recently, I stopped to get gas at this gas station before I went to see my aunt. And this girl was like, "You look familiar. You look like familiar." She was like, "Are you a Anderson?" I'm like, "Yeah." She was like, "Oh my gosh, you look just like my cousin. You my cousin too." So she was like, her last name was Anderson. So we were related just off of my looks, my phenotype. She was like, "Your skin color, your hair, like my everything, like we all have the same look, even if we look a little bit different." So Halifax County. Um, you talking about Virginia or North Carolina? Because I believe there's one in both places. North Carolina has a good archive as well that you can look into. Heard of Black Hawk Cherokee tribe. Yeah, see, in those instances, like the Black Hawk Cherokee, like the original tribe was probably called Black Hawk, but they're under the Cherokee government, so that's why they put both of them together. Did you say you're standing? Yes, I'm sitting on the mound right now. It's an artificial mound, probably a year or two old. It's not a real mound. He said Queen Khalifa was a matriarch feminist. Yeah, Queen Khalifa is, or Khalifa, whichever way you want to pronounce it. That's who California is named after. And they have this mythos about her. So, some people don't believe that she's a real person. The tribes there do recognize her as a real person. She was a real, what do you call it, paramount chief or empress of her empire. Which mostly women, which was actually matriarchal, mostly women in power, and women were warriors, and they had that reputation. The story comes from this Spanish novel. So the story that's introduced to the Europeans comes from a Spanish novel, but people were saying that it was a real person in society. I have to do more research on that. So I can just go from what I'm hearing elders saying. People believe it's real. So Alabama tribes, Washita. No, it wouldn't be Washita. They had their own identity. Yeah, it probably was, right, Yana? Probably was. So you have to hear the playback on Alabama. Yeah, Alabama, the name is actually a tribe. It's actually a tribal nation. And like I said, they went under the Creek government at one point in time. Believe probably in the mid or late 1800s. But before that, Alabama was a nation. They're from the Mississippian culture. So, y'all got any more questions? Getting a headache up here. Because my great aunt told me that's what our family were part of, and then they broke off. So they were Alabama. Yeah, Chatta was in Alabama, in Chata. Did I say Chatta? Chata, we're in Alabama as well. Yes. But you got to understand what Alabama was. And they're not really talking about a lot of the stuff that was of importance there. The mounds, the underground cities that were there, as well as the good hunting grounds that were hunted on by the Shata and different tribes. It's a whole lot. I'll try to do some more research on that, but I'm just going off from what I've been told about them. Also, during the slave trade, that's where a lot of slaves were taken, as well as the Carolinas. Yeah, well, I don't think we're ever going to see those underground cities because certain people have those locked up from us. Unless you can go through one of the reservations, but yeah. But y'all know who's at the reservations, so. But yeah, the underground cities is something interesting as well. The place that I'm at now, there is an underground, there's underground tunnels and things that people don't want to talk about. But there's actually a tunnel that used to be Powerton that goes from, where is this place? Probably close down to the Richmond area all the way up to where the White House is, to DC. So there's actually tunnels down there, allegedly. Alleged. Allegedly. All right. So you watched National Treasure movie, and there was a mount that leads to the city of God, right, Yana? Yeah, y'all. If y'all watch my city of what I call the Lost City of Z video, Wakanda video, I kind of go into that. And then a lot of these lost quote unquote cities are popping up on Google Earth now, and people are going down there trying to get grant money to investigate, like anthropologists and archaeologists. So it's kind of under the hush now. They got these projects and they're not releasing the information to us. So you said your grandparents were born in 1913, and would both be Creek. That's kind of too early to determine that. Like I said, and you got to go into what area that is too. Um, to determine, because like I said, some people from Mississippi that I've helped, their family end up coming from Virginia. So you're gonna have to keep going back at least until the mid 1800s to try to determine a tribal location. If you have oral tradition, that's something different. Derek Banks, you said you're in Richmond, Virginia. Your ancestors from King and Queen in Charles County. Me too. I've been trying to find my tribe. Would it be Powerton? Um, Charles City is Chickahominy, or there was probably two or three different Powhatan tribes in the area. Chickahominy, Winoyoke. Am I pronouncing that right? I don't think I'm pronouncing that right. Winoyoke, which my family was a part of, and Nottoway were also in that area. There's another tribe, I can't remember the name, but that was also a Powhatan tribe in that area. Um, then you can look up the records for Charles City too, because on their website they'll show you all the different towns and stuff. And then the Free People of Color actually had churches named after some of the tribes in Virginia, so that's another way that you would be able to determine. Um, Pamunkey and Mattapanai and different tribes had the whole Baptist associations named after them. Okay, because you got to remember, Virginia and Massachusetts were some of the first places where the indigenous people were Christianized and converted to Christianity at. So a lot of the churches will be named after the tribes, and people were still practicing their culture and their language within the churches because they were private, and they will be able to get away with that. Okay, let me see what else. Is Blackfoot of the South a real tribe or band? Oh, the infamous Blackfoot debate. I'm gonna say debacle. So me and Yana, who's on here now, we've done some research on that, and we found that there are different groups of Blackfoot. One group being from the plains, which migrated down to Louisiana and Mississippi and those areas. And there's also the Blackfoot on the East Coast, who are of either Algonquian or Siouan descent. So, as some people know, the Siouans originate in the plains as well. The Algonquians, the ones that were named Blackfoot, came from the north too. So So that's the thing with Blackfoot. It's a kind of a misnomer, unless you're from the actual tribe that's from the plains, which some people in Louisiana and Mississippi descend from. Now the ones on the East Coast were called that because they had tar on their feet or black and colored on their feet. Feet. I said feet. On their feet. Protect their feet from dirt and things, or on the bottom of their shoes. That's where the rubber soles in your shoes come from the indigenous tribes, where a lot of people don't know. Because we used to put rubber soles on our shoes before they knew what it was, on our moccasins or whatever. So that's where that comes from. They didn't have that. They had what they had, wood or metal. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm getting my butt falling asleep out here. Trying to read y'all questions. Peace, love. You say you're in Danville in Pennsylvania County. There have been a lot of sinkholes. Oh, really? Yeah, I have some friends from Danville. Yeah, the weather's been getting crazy. The weather's been really crazy out here in Virginia. Like, it's finally summertime. We done had tornadoes. We done had earthquakes. We done had hailstorms. It's ridiculous. So, all right, here's a good question. Oof, these mosquitoes getting bad because the sun getting down. How can you distinguish your ancestors who have the same last name and are marrying each other? So many of them had the same exact name, but it's difficult. Ooh, child, you can get that's a web that's been weaved. Okay, so I have a family who is like that. Some of the times that means that the cousins were intermarrying. These are not first cousins intermarrying. These are like third, fourth, fifth cousins. Why they were doing that, that is with the term that the country folks say. They're trying to keep the blood pure and basically keep intermixing with other indigenous families who have preserved their culture and heritage and the stuff like that. So certain families, like you'll see, like in North Carolina, like the Chavises and the Lowrys and the Locklears and different families intermarrying with each other because they all have known indigenous heritage and they're from free families. This happened in Virginia. The Brown family is one of them. There's several different Brown families, but the Browns kept intermarrying with other indigenous families. It's a whole bunch of different surnames who have done that. But that's the reason why they have some of us have on a family tree cousins marrying cousins. Like you'll have the wife, and she doesn't have a different maiden name because her maiden name is the same as her husband's because they're distant cousins. They're like third cousins or something. Now our people weren't stupid, so they knew at a certain point with mixing the families that it's not going to affect the children physically or mentally. Now you can tell when people have been thoroughly intermixed. They're much slower than other people. And I spoke to Dr. Fatu about this in private. She was talking about, I'm not going to name who she was talking about, but certain tribes in Africa are a lot slower. You can tell the difference because they have been intermixing with each other and they haven't been bringing any new blood. Now over here, one reason why that the Europeans were able to mix in was for that reason, because we knew the science. Our people weren't dumb. They knew the science and how genes and things and DNA worked. Even though if they didn't use those terms, you said you've seen that before, it's creepy. Yeah, even though they didn't use those terms, they were smart enough to know what was going on. Oh, some little kids done walked over in the mound now. But yeah, that's why they were trying to mix in with the different foreign tribes. Davita, you said you found your great parents from Barbados. And the Dabney, yes, cousin. Yes, I'm a Dabney too. Oh, I have that book too in the car. on the Dabneys. Now that book, I might do a video for you guys, but I'm gonna definitely show you the Vita. But that book has a lot of the history of the the tribes here, like some of our ancestors are in there. Um, Chief Powerton is discussed in there. Different native or indigenous people were in there. So the book goes into. I thought it was just for the family, Dabney family, but it goes into tribes, as well as the history of Virginia and the history of the United States, basically, the beginning, because it talks about the House of Burgess, which many of the members of the House of Burgess, as some people know, intermix with the indigenous women. Let's see. Yana says, how do you feel about documents of your folks being labeled directly as Indian? We know that a lot of them were not labeled directly as Indian, but they knew who they were. And a lot of that stuff was written certain ways for a reason to confuse people. So they will put, in a lot of cases, mulatto or Negro or colored instead of Indian. And we know they went back and they changed. Especially for Virginia, Walter Plecker went back and changed all the records. It's rare to find any that have Indian. Some people were able to go back, and they passed an act. Someone just posted it. I saw it yesterday. But they passed an act so that those Virginia tribes could go back and correct their status. Now, Walter Plecker was only in Virginia, but he was very influential throughout the nation, as well as in Germany and other places overseas, because he was in the eugenics movement. And some of y'all understand what eugenics is. It's a very racist movement, which was based on phenotypes and things to make other people superior to only a certain group of Europeans. Not even all Europeans, because other Europeans, like the Slavics, were they were probably profiled worse than so-called black people in the eugenics movement. So it was racist and prejudiced, I would say. Let me see what else y'all talking about. Yeah, they changed it in Alabama. Yeah, I don't know who was in charge of Alabama, but a lot of people did follow his lead. Oof. I'm sorry. You said you have Dabney Eli. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll go into the Dabneys and their family. The Dabneys, they came from. Did they come from France? One man came from France and married into the tribes. I think it's William Dabney. Don't quote me on that. He was an interpreter. He came in, the first thing he learned for trade and things was he learned the Powhatan language, which came in handy to him because he was able to get a job working for Queen Anne of the Pumonke, which is Chief Kokoeski, who was the paramount chief or empress of the Powhatan Nation at that time. And that Dabney man ended up marrying her daughter, Susanna. So that's how a lot of us who are still in the know of their heritage, who they descend from. Yeah, so and then some people seeing that, he was such a noble person. He was a good guy. Like, all these Europeans weren't bad people. But he was such a noble person. He had helped a lot of people in the indigenous community. Some people took on that last name for that purpose, and that's how our people did it. We didn't all get last names because that we were intermarried with Europeans. Some people saw or were cool, friends with certain European, and then when someone would ask them their name, like if they're doing trade or something, they'd be like, oh, my name is, they'll just make up a name, like John Dabney, just because they were cool with William Dabney. They'll tell somebody their name is John Dabney. Or if they're going to court or things like that, they would make up a name. So y'all know that our people always had like a million aliases and right, alias. We had it within our language, and we also had, for trade with the Europeans and things. So we had to adjust. Just like if we were trading with, if you were Algonquian speaker, you're trading with Iroquois, you might have an Iroquois name, for trade. So you'll be more, I guess, likable. Yeah, so. And let me know the questions, because it's, I got to get down this hill, and I'm accident prone, so I want to get off the camera before I walk down this mound, so I won't be rolling down. It's getting dark too, so, but the park doesn't close till later. So y'all got any more questions? Common genealogy questions? You said don't fall. If I fall, I'm gonna fall off camera. That's all I'm saying. Do you guys have any genealogy question? You said you still do, even your dog. Yeah, John, I know you got a million. You got a million names, and people act like it's something weird, but it's common. That's just your indigenous heritage. I don't see nothing wrong with everybody having a million names. Eli, you got some good questions. You say, I have a great-grand named Enos Cuffy Reed, who seemed to have disappeared from history, and his dad was Robert, let me not mess that up, Hadalubby or Tubby. Any Tubbies here? If you're a Kofi from Virginia, there's a lot of information on Kofi, because y'all are descendants of William Kofi, the guy from the Wampanoag guy. So some of us down here in Virginia, we have heritage, Wampanoag and Narragansett heritage from people trading or people moving down here, because it was like that for a while before, because the people, we already speak the same language, different dialects, so there was always trade. But when the Europeans came, the Wampanoag men specifically had more freedom to do whaling and to use their ships for trade. So they would go to Europe and Africa and places to trade whale meat or whatever they had, because they were doing that before the Europeans came anyways. So the Algonquin men had always traveled to trade, and they were even in places like Hawaii, which Hawaii shares DNA with the Algonquins, which a lot of people do not know. So they try to act like we were just primitive and stationed in one area, but we traveled before they traveled. And we continued to travel until they stopped, people. And people lost the ways, and they forgot the heritage, and they forgot whaling. So if you look in the history of whaling, you will see all these Algonquin men who taught the Europeans how to whale, which they never speak about. Yeah, cowrie shells, that is not an African thing. People think cowrie shells are African, and when people had the Back to Africa movement, people had cowrie shells, but we had cowrie shells here. You read the description of, I'm going to do another video on that, William Byrd had, the Nottoway, the women had cowrie shells in their hair. They had their hair braided, right? Micro braids or individual braids, and they had cowrie shells in their braids. The men had cowrie shell necklaces and things. So the cowrie shells is not just African. It's found off the coast of Virginia, the East Coast and the Gulf Coast, and probably in California coast as well. So, Saranda, you said you're born in Illinois. Great-grandparents are Cherokee and Seminole down in Florida, and we are deep down in Virginia. Okay, yeah, you probably my cousin. You got a she name too. All right. Okay, now let me see the last. Was it T. Crump? You said your great-great-grandfather's name was Nathaniel Crump, and he was given the name by a slave master. How do I find his real name and tribe? And he was taken from the Smoky Mountains. That's the hard thing, and that's when you have to get into history as well. Thank you, Eli, for the donation. You have to get. Oh, the God, they about to kick me out of here. Let me close it, close it up. But you have to get into the history of that area and the surnames, and it gets really deep when you get into that. So when you start looking in the court records, you might be able to find some information within the court records about that, because our people did, contrary to popular belief, our people did, even if they were enslaved, took people to court, and they represented themselves as their own lawyers in court, or they hired lawyers. So that was not uncommon. It's the thank you, T. Crump, for the donation. It's the movies that kind of got everybody on different backgrounds and races all confused, who have not studied the real history or looked at real primary source documents. So in genealogy, you get down to the primary source documents, and it can't be no misunderstandings because you see it plainly written. It's not opinions, right? All right, y'all. So I'm gonna close it out, and I'm probably gonna try to do like a genealogy video at least once a month, so y'all can ask me questions. And my inbox is always free if you have questions. If I can answer it, if I can't, I'll try to direct you to somebody else. But thank you guys. Nitab, which means thank you, and or is it Kina? Okay, now I'm getting confused. But thank you guys, and